Arriving in Hong Kong early Friday morning, after a long 25-hour flight, we were taken to our ship, the Viking Orion. The Orion was docked at the ocean terminal on the Kowloon side of Victoria Harbour. Due to the unrest in Hong Kong at that time and the long day, we elected to enjoy the sights of the clock tower, the cultural center, and the high-rise skyline of the Hong Kong side. We watched the Star Ferry shuttle back and forth. The Star Ferry has been ferrying passengers across Victoria Harbour every day for the past century. It is an integral part of the city's history and remains beloved by the locals and visitors alike. As the sun went down, we waited for the nightly light show, which is set to music and considered to be one of the best in the world. Early the next morning, it was off to Shung Shai Beach, one of Hong Kong's 50 beautiful beaches. Images of Hong Kong normally consist of skyscrapers and bright neon lights, not stretches of glorious white sand beaches. 2 miles of sand make Shung Shai Beach one of Hong Kong's longest stretches of beach. Our next stop was the Teo fishing village, where we were greeted by one of the local residents. Teo is home to the Tanka people, a community of fisher folks who built their homes on stilts above the tidal flats of the Lantau Islands for generations. These unusual structures are interconnected, forming a tightly knit community that literally lives on the water. The manually operated drawbridge that spans the narrow creek dividing the town has replaced a rope-drawn ferry that had operated for over 85 years. We strolled through the village, past charming fishing boats, stilt houses, canals, shops selling everything imaginable, including a shark skin and all manner of dried fishing products. Teo used to be a very important trading and fishing port, but this is a thing of the past, as the younger generations have moved out. We could still see the old folks making a living the old traditional way at this lively market, which remains one of the favorite places for locals to buy their fresh and dried seafoods and the shrimp paste, which is famous of the area. The market was a feast for your eyes, perhaps not the nose. But we made our way through the stalls and alleys and checked out the live seafood tanks, the vast array of dried seafoods and vegetables, some which could not be recognized. Perched high on the hills of Lantau Island, the big Buddha statue is one of Hong Kong's most impressive sights. The official name is the Tian Tan Buddha and is part of the Po Lin Monastery complex. The eyes, lip, incline of the head and right hand, which is raised to deliver a blessing to all, combine to bring a humbling depth of character and dignity to the massive Buddha. It is a 112-foot tall statue of a seated Buddha and weighs over 250 tons. It is the biggest seated bronze Buddha in the world. Originally built in 1993 as a source of inspiration and a location for contemplation, its grandiose size has turned it into a tourist magnet, and millions of visitors flock there each year. It is visible from all over Lantau and is arguably most impressive from a distance where it casts a shadow over the hills of Lantau Island. You can climb the 268 steps leading up from the base to the statue, where there is a small exhibition on the life of Buddha. From here, we enjoyed superb views all over the lush greenery of Lantau Island, the shimmering South China Sea, and the flights gliding from Airport. Polin Monastery is the largest Buddhist temple in Hong Kong. The history of Polin Monastery can trace back to 1906 when 3 monks from China set up a site on Lantau Island for practice. It gained more and more members and now has developed into a world-renowned monastery. In the Grand Hall, we found 10,000 glowing Buddha statues and a magnificent ceiling. Outside were several large carvings. Returning down the mountain, we were able to enjoy the 25-minute gondola ride back to the bus. It gave us the opportunity for an aerial view of the Big Buddha and took us over some of the island's most beautiful scenery. There are spectacular views of the valleys and the greenery of the Lantau County Park, the reservoirs, and the sea, the airport, and the complexes of high-rise buildings. After spending a day at sea, Monday morning we sailed into Halong Bay, Vietnam. We discovered a relatively modern city with lots of emphasis on tourism. The city's economy has recently switched from coal mining to tourism due to the large number of visitors drawn by the Halong Islands every year. At present, it is experiencing rapid growth not only in tourism, but as a stopover upon the main road to South China. Before discovering more about Halong Bay, it was off to Hanoi. We traveled inland about 2.5 hours. Hanoi is one of the oldest capital cities in the world, and one that has held its title for more than 1,000 years. Despite several battles that have raged over the city, Hanoi has retained the charm of bygone eras. We were given a bus tour, passing the University of Vietnam, Hoan Kiem Lake, a beautiful and charming lake with amazing views, the Temple of Literature with its peaceful walled courtyards and graceful gateways. This monument is one of the best preserved examples of traditional Vietnamese architecture. One of the first things we noticed was the incredible amount of motor scooters and traffic. We were taken to the Old Quarter, a collection of about 36 streets, to admire the mix of French and Chinese influences with traditional Vietnamese architecture, where we were transferred to electric cars for a chaotic tour through the area. We then were able to explore the area on foot and experience the hustle and bustle. We walked the maze of back streets and found the incredible diversity of shops, which all specialize in selling something like jewelry, pillows, shirts, baskets, toys, shoes, sunglasses, and so forth. Craftsmen, restaurants, and street vendors at every turn. We marveled at the organized chaos of Hanoi's streets and sidewalks as the traffic and pedestrians swarmed around us. Our last stop for the day was at the infamous Hanoi Hilton. Nothing prepares you for how creepy the visit can be. The prison's displays focus on the sufferings of the Vietnamese revolutionaries who were confined and sometimes executed here when the French were the masters of Vietnam in the early part of the 20th century. Today, only a small portion remains as a museum. The next morning I was off to discover the beautiful scenery of Halong Bay on a relaxing cruise aboard a traditional junk boat. More than 2,000 islands of towering limestone, which rise in tropical vegetations, dot the magnificent seascapes of Halong Bay. Halong Bay is approximately 575 miles in size and is home to over 1,600 fishermen who live in floating villages. It is on the edge of the Gulf of Tonkin, stretching for about 100 miles along the Vietnamese coast. But the rugged islands are not completely uninhabited. Villages, some of them floating like makeshift houseboats or suspended on stilts, hug the occasional shore or fan out onto piers that reach into the water. At mealtimes, small wooden boats are transformed into mobile eateries, whose pilots and cook will happily grill freshly caught fish and prawns for any willing customer. For more than 5,000 years, these islands are home to locals living mainly on agriculture and fishing. Halong Bay now houses just a few fishing villages where travelers can join kayak tours, visit a pearl farm, try fishing with local fishermen, or simply observe their daily lives. We cruised along the bay, admiring the mystic-like vista of thousands of small limestone islands rising from the emerald-colored ocean. The soaring islands of Halong Bay harbor a secret. Several of them are hollow and hide enormous caves behind their exteriors. Over countless millennia, by some measures, 500 million years, these vast passages were carved out of as seas rose and fell and the waters permeated, flooded, and dissolved the limestones. The weather was not the best. The sun did not shine, but at least it was not raining. We observed a wide variety of boats sailing these waters. There were larger boats that accommodated overnight guests. There were commercial fishing boats piled high with their fishing nets. Small boats for those hardy fishermen who just wanted to catch enough to feed his family. And there were the round basket boats made out of bamboo. These are seen widely along the coast of Vietnam. With its aqua green water and cluster of limestone rocky outcrops rising from the water like sea dragons, Halong Bay resembles a scene from a fantasy story. For the next few seconds, you will see a panorama of the whole area. Unique UNESCO World Heritage Site is a popular place for tourists, but it is good to know that large parts of the Halong Bay are officially protected from development. The islands vary greatly in size and shape as well as structure. The bay's floating villages draw a lot of attention and are one of the highlights. Locals have been living in these floating houses for many generations, as fishing is still the villagers' main income. We arrived in Chiang Mai early Wednesday morning to find all of our tour buses lined up and waiting to take us up to Da Nang, 46 miles away. En route to Da Nang, we passed through central Vietnam's picturesque countryside of fertile rice paddies and grazing water buffalo and interesting fishing farms. Our first stop was at the Da Nang Museum of Cham Sculptures, where fascinating sandstone sculptures and temple ornamentations date back as far as the 4th century. As we ventured across many lanes of traffic to get a close-up at Da Nang's Dragon Bridge, we noticed a large banyan tree. The Dragon Bridge in the evening is illuminated with colorful LED lights. On weekends and annual festivals, the state-of-the-art bridge is also scheduled to spit fire and water from its mouth starting at 9 p.m. According to local beliefs, which date back to the Ling Dynasty, the dragon is a significant symbol of power, nobility, and good fortune. We noticed some of the cars even had incense burners. Our next stop was at the marble factory, where we witnessed the hand carvings in progress and were also served a box lunch. They gave us the opportunity to purchase one of their beautiful statues, but none of them would fit in my suitcase. After lunch, we stopped at Mai Kai Beach, considered to be Vietnam's most picturesque beach. The white sandy 20-mile stretch of Mai Kai Beach was named China Beach by the American troops who visited during the Vietnam War for R&R. It offers excellent surfing just off the shores of Da Nang. It is famous for its blue sky, smooth white sand, gentle slope, clear and warm water year-round, and beautiful areas surrounded by coconut palm trees. Our one last stop at the Ling Ung Pagoda, which sits high atop Marble Mountain, we were greeted by two of the local monkeys foraging for a handout. The giant entrance gate offers spectacular views overlooking the countryside and sea. The main chamber of the pagoda is one of the typical examples of Vietnamese pagodas. Going inside the chamber, visitors must take off their shoes first before they can do any activities such as praying. Friday morning, it was off to tour Ho Chi Minh City's rich blend of Vietnamese culture, Chinese influence, and French colonial architecture. We passed the Reunification Palace, home of the President of South Vietnam during the Vietnam War, soaring neo-Romanesque Notre Dame Cathedral with its twin bell towers and construction scaffolding, an elegant central post office, a masterwork of Gothic, Renaissance, and French styles. 1 block away was a craggy old building with a nondescript elevator engine room at its peak. It is where the famous helicopter evacuation by the Americans took place. We stopped at the Municipal Theater, which was modeled after the Grand Opéra Minier in Paris, where a show troupe was preparing for a show, but we did not have time to watch. We stopped at a studio where the gals were inlaying artwork with duck egg shells by using intricate methods and meticulous attention to detail to create art-based traditional Vietnamese cultural symbols. Our last stop for the day was at the Emperor Jade Pagoda, also known as Tortoise Pagoda. It is one of the 5 most important shrines in Ho Chi Minh City. There is an overcrowded tortoise pond in front of the temple grounds, and feeding the animals is considered part of the merit-making temple-going rituals. Emperor Jade Pagoda is a living and working shrine very much in use by the locals who come here to pray or make votive offerings of flowers, light candles, and joss sticks. It's dimly lit, the narrow passageways filled with smoke lend an atmospheric feel to the place, adding to its charm. That evening aboard the ship, we were entertained by a troupe of musicians and dancers in their native costumes. I don't think any of their music would make our top 10 in this country. Saturday, we drove through the countryside to Kai Bay on the Mekong River. home to a bustling floating market, and a French colonial-era Romanesque Catholic church built around 1930 by a German priest. We stopped at a local home for a snack and some local entertainment. We were introduced to the jackfruit, which can weigh up to 28 pounds. Each tree can produce tons of fruit each year. We then boarded a boat to motor down to one of the canals, where we boarded small sampans for a tour through the canals. It was a real trick trying to get all of these old folks off the bigger boat and down into those sampans. We had a fascinating glimpse of life along the Mekong River shores. Farmers and fishermen have earned a living here for generations, often living right at the water's edge in rustic homes. Kai Bay is famous for its market, where 400 boats in the delta gather for trading each day. The hustle and bustle of the market begins in the early morning, but remains open all day. Some people come here to buy products from merchants and take back to the markets on the mainland for resale. By later in the afternoon, when we were in the area, there was little activities going on. We stopped at a local candy factory and saw how they made puffed rice candies, rice pancakes, and coconut candy. We watched as the gals hand-wrapped each piece of coconut candy while one of the children slept in a hammock behind them. We continued to cruise past more and more unbelievable living conditions. It is unthinkable to think how these people survive in such conditions, most of them without electricity or running water. Our lunch stop was at a local restaurant, where we were served lychee fruit, a native to Southeast Asia, and has been a fruit favorite of the Cantonese since ancient times. Once peeled, a moist, sweet fruit is revealed, and inside of that, a large black seed. The main course was tilapia, served in a very unusual way. We sailed into Cambodia Tuesday morning and immediately headed off for Ream National Park. We drove through the lush countryside to reach the park. We were to board boats and head upriver to take in the sights. What a shock we had when we saw the utter filth and garbage just laying around. The culture of the Cambodian people is just throw it down. They have no garbage pickup. There were piles and piles of plastic bottles and styrofoam containers. We boarded our boats and headed out. A boat ride on a typical wooden boat allowed us to enjoy the natural beauty along the mangrove-lined river. The park sprawls over approximately 60,000 acres, providing a pristine, protected environment for birds, monkeys, and all sorts of marine life. We watched for wildlife, but were not fortunate enough to see any. The park is endowed with great natural beauty and rich biodiversity. Around 30,000 people live at the fringes of the park and are largely dependent on the park for their livelihood. After disembarking the boat, we were taken to a private home where we were able to observe their lifestyle. Upon arrival, we were welcomed by the family and told about their daily life. We observed a demonstration on how to make the traditional khmer cake and then offered a snack of exotic fruit, fresh coconut, and a drink. The house was built on stilts with kitchen and open living area on ground level and bedrooms above. They had a bathroom, but since they had no running water or electricity, I imagine it was a hole in the ground. I did not check it out. The children were excited to have visitors. Our next stop was at Gold Silver Beach, where a $3 billion Chinese-backed resort is under construction. The plan aims to transform the region into an attractive tourism destination with condos, hotels, restaurants, shopping malls, and golf courses. The beach has been selected as one of the world's most beautiful natural beaches. Anchored offshore was a gambling boat. Onshore were thatched huts for relaxing and a restaurant. I spotted this unusual fruit on a palm tree, but found out that it was not edible. Our last stop for the day was at the Wat Samadhi, an iconic Buddhist temple located just inside the national park. It is surrounded by thick forest and dotted with banana and mango trees. A very long staircase leads up to a courtyard where a very large Buddha statue sits. From there, a second staircase takes you up again to another very large, this time lying Buddha, and the elaborate pagoda. The pagoda is the heart of Cambodian life, and many villages, towns, and cities have developed around particularly active pagodas. From a distance, we were able to observe the monks chanting their afternoon prayers. Wednesday morning, it was off to see the beautiful Wat Kram, much more well-kept and active. The pagoda is traditionally a place of education for boys, and many young Cambodian men still enter the pagoda for anything between 1 to 10 years to benefit from the education provided. There are 5 key precepts in Buddhism, which guide the people's behavior to help them live a happy life: to refrain from taking life, to refrain from taking that which is not given, to refrain from sensual misconduct, to refrain from lying, and to refrain from intoxicants which lead to loss of mindfulness. We were entertained by a demonstration of local dancers and musicians playing their native instruments. As we continued our tour on Sihanoukville, we could not help but notice the horrible road conditions, many of them nothing but dirt and potholes, the horrible traffic, the thousands of motor scooters and tuk-tuks, and the never-ending construction, of which foreign and Chinese investors are building 82 casinos. We made a stop at Independence Beach for a short break and a chance to stroll along the beautiful beach. This beach was made famous by Jacqueline Kennedy in 1967 during her visit to Cambodia. Adjacent to the beach is also a lush green park area, well maintained and decorated with statues and lots of shade trees. Also present are the food vendors and their carts. We continued on our journey to the tiny fishing village of Tumnak Rolak, where the pace of life is slow and fishermen prepare the day's catch for market. These men were bagging small white fish in large bags. Sanitary conditions were not desirable. The gals in the next market were busy sorting the day's catch of shrimp. Conditions again left a lot to be desired. Several men along the way were preparing their fishing nets for the next catch. All of the fleet of fishing boats looked like they had had many, many years of hard wear and tear. As we departed, there was a charcoal grill cooking with fresh fish which were covered with flies. Ooh, yummy. And of course, the ever-present tuk-tuk can be found everywhere. Sihanoukville has a long way to go before it can become a world-class vacation destination. As we sailed out, we got a closer look at that gambling boat anchored offshore and its strange paint job. Thursday morning, we docked 2 hours out of Bangkok and headed off for a panoramic tour of the city. Bangkok is rich and engaging in its bustling center, where modern skyscrapers rub elbows with centuries-old Buddhist wats or temples. There's a healthy variety of sights to see in Bangkok, making it a unique destination suitable for anyone. This fascination metropolis blends Thailand's most cherished traditions with the advantages of the modern world. The towering Wat Arun, or Temple of Dawn, named for the god of the rising sun, stands dramatically on the river's bank. The Marble Temple is considered Bangkok's most beautiful and opulent temples. It is a stellar example of modern Thai architecture, brilliantly orange terrace roofs and dainty gold show fans, a Thai architectural decorative ornament that adorns the top at the end of Wat and palace roofs. Magnificent columns and floors made of white Carrara marble. Its design certainly reflects more contemporary and Western styles, but are uniquely rooted in classical Thai design sensitivities. Inside the temple features 52 images of various Buddha positions. Today, it is famous as a learning center for Buddhist monks wishing to increase their knowledge. The temple is an active temple, and monks' private living quarters are across the canal separated from the temple area. In our travels, we passed the Thorn Hall. It is the centerpiece of the main thoroughfare known as Bangkok's Champs-Élysées. It is often the focus of regal pomp and ceremony during royal celebrations. We were taken to the Bangkok Flower Market, Thailand's largest wholesale flower market. It is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It has a cramped and chaotic feel and is easy to get lost amid the colorful sights and seductive smells of this sprawling market, with endless rows of roses, ornate orchids, crisp carnations, and miles of marigolds. While we waited for our bus to pick us up, we watched the chaotic traffic as vendors tried to load their purchases into trucks, tuk-tuks, or anything they could. Returning to the ship, we passed the Democracy Monument. It was erected to commemorate Thailand's momentous transformation from absolute to constitutional monarchy. Off in the distance, we could see the tallest and most unusual building in Bangkok. It houses retail, hotel, and residences, priced between $1.1 million and $17 million US dollars. It was time to say goodbye to our favorite crew members, Mario, the head waiter who always had a smile for us, and our two favorite bartenders, Ari and Zoran, who always took very good care of us throughout our travels to the far corners of the world.